Hello everyone, this is CD Man Jack here with my guide for Yodarha. This is a support build and a general use endgame build for everyone in the game. I'm going to go over my sigils first, and then we will go into specifically Yoda or Yodarha, however you want to say his name. So essentially, do this at any point in the game if you've got the sigils for it. This involves a lot of sigil synthesis, but I will go over each one and slowly so you can see what I've done. So first of all, supplementary damage. I think this is key on pretty much every character. So you could make this for every single character. You just have to take supplementary damage and fuse it together, and eventually you'll get a double. Supplementary damage is free from damage cap. It's not affected by damage cap, but it's essentially whenever this procs, you're getting free damage. So why the hell would you not use it? This is super good for range characters, anyone that attacks really fast, anyone in general, really, because you do big hits, you're going to get extra damage anyway. War Elemental, without saying, you do extra like 20% damage because you're taking advantage of all elemental damage. If you can get it with something nice like Nimble Ons or something like that, or Garrison, that's probably what I would go for if you want a little bit of survivability. I've got Link Together here because I'm a bit of a fiend for Link attacks, so that really helps with that. We got Spartan Echo. This is going to proc pretty much all the time because of the health that we've got. I'm running the endgame weapon, but you can run any weapon that you want. A lot of people will be running the Ascension weapons, and that's absolutely fine until you fully upgrade your Terminus. Now, everyone always says, why don't you run Berserker? And that's because you only need one. Because Spartan Echo just guarantees that you're going to do supplementary damage. The other one, it doesn't really matter. You can use Berserker if you want to, but for me, it's just a waste of a slot. Now, the new Celestial sigils are very, very good. A lot of people aren't taking full advantage of them. What I like to do is fuse them together so you free up your little bit of slots. That makes it a little bit easier for you. So we've got Lumen and Terra here, and then we've got Aqua in Incendo. And essentially what these do, if we bring these up, you've got Lumen, which will boost your attack power and damage cap when your health is above 75%. You should essentially always be hitting this, because if you're lower than that, you're probably going to get one shot. So you probably never want to be under 75% anyway, unless you're playing someone like Vasaraga. You got Terra, which reduces your base health, and you get a big boost to damage cap. You're essentially going to max out damage cap anyway, but this will just give you another source of damage cap. So you're even more higher with your damage cap. You've got Celestial Ventus, which you'll deal more damage, but you won't get healed from allies. This isn't really too much of an issue, because most people now, they'll shield you instead of heal you. So you pretty much don't need ally healing at this point anyway, because anyone at endgame that's using a healer like Cagliostro or Magliel is probably running the shield build. So instead of them healing you, they'll give you a big overshield. So this is pretty much just worth it because you get a whole 10% damage increase. We've got max damage cap. That's from a few different sources that we'll go over later on. But essentially, damage cap is, I would say, probably the most important thing in the game. If you're not hitting damage cap, then you're losing out on so much damage. Let's go back to this. So we've got health with Celestial Ventus. So that's another one that we went over. So yeah, we put that on the HP one. Again, easy sigil synthesis. You're going to have so many HP ones anyway, so you might as well use them and try and get Ventus on it as well. And then we've got HP and Fate Breaker. Fate Breaker is pretty much needed for endgame. It gives you a huge damage boost in the chaos difficulties. This unfortunately does not work in the lower difficulties, but it doesn't really matter because, I mean, you're going to stomp that content anyway, so it doesn't really matter to take. You could probably take this off and put something else on if you are doing a lower end quest, but there's not really any need for it. Now, the most important skill for the end game content. So when you get to infinity difficulty, stun power becomes a necessity. There's no negotiation on this. You need basically 300 stun power, or as close as you can get to 300 stun power, to clear a lot of the mechanics in the final bosses. A lot of them, you can end their overcharge or their final death move by breaking their stance and doing a link attack on them. So stun power is so helpful for that. Most people you'll play at endgame will have that. It's a good idea to have basically stun power and damage cap together, because then it frees up your damage cap slots. So I've got 3 stun powers with damage cap. And then the last 2 slots, it's up to you what you want to use. Me personally, I like Yodarha's specific ones. For this build, the most important one that he has is going to be this one. So the Swordmaster's Art, because it gives you a 75% chance to not use triple shroud marks, which is absolutely insane with the build that we've got going on. I've got prowess as well. For the mastery that I use, when you go into link time, if you do a combo finisher, you can just keep pressing triangle over and over again, and he will just constantly keep attacking. And the combo gets stronger after every hit. When you enter link time, it will be at the maximum strength anyway, so you can just keep pressing triangle, and you'll get an insane amount of DPS. Right. So, the masteries that we are running for Yoda, this probably could use a little bit more optimization, but essentially I run the Triple Shroud Savvy for me, just because it gives you that final upgrade, which combo finishes deal 40% more damage, and you can do them in succession. So the way this works is when you get triple marks, you can keep pressing triangle when you've done 1 finisher, and you can do 2 more, and you'll do a lot more damage. There's also an advantage of this where you have a chance to get a shroud mark just by hitting the enemy with a square attack. So that gives you the advantage of constantly basically get triple shroud marks without having to hit that finisher. Some bosses are very hard to hit with the finisher because they'll be moving around a lot, so that really frees you up on that. Now, the important skills that I like to run on here is perpetual rotation cooldown. We've got Trice Blade up. We've got Hymn of the Hundreds cooldown. More perpetual rotation cooldown. More Trice Blade duration. Those are the most important ones, personally, I think, for the mastery. Everything else, I would say you probably put on whatever you wish. There's a couple of different ways to play Yoda. If you want to run him as full damage, you could probably run the exact same build and then just run Speedrunner. If you like parrying, you could probably do Death Deflection, but at the final endgame, this is going to be a very hard way to play the game, unless you are an absolute Chad and can block everything in the game. Now, in terms of the way that I have him set up, we've got his skills here, which we've got Perpetual Rotation on square, we've got Trice Blade on triangle, we've got Hymn of the Hundreds on X, and I've got Flash and Void on circle. I also have the cooldown stuff on the mastery tree for this skill. Now, the reason why we run this in particular is Flash and Void makes you completely invulnerable to all damage while this is active. So it's an incredibly helpful move for when the boss goes into an enrage. or they go overdrive, and you want to avoid some damage. If you know you absolutely can't dodge what's about to hit you, you can activate that skill in a panic, and you will basically be immune. That's a bit of a cowardly way of using the skill, but it does work, so that is something to keep in mind. Right, we'll go into the training. Let me just turn up the dummy. So, that's that.
Guess I haven't had me a good roll for a while.
And then, right, if we put this on damage cap,
Now you're
we're probably not even hitting the damage cap. So, that's what we tend to do when we start the game. So you want to activate your triple shrouds. You want to activate the mirror image or hymn of the hundreds to give you mirror image ×3, and then trice blade to give everyone a damage boost. Mirror image is just OP. If you run something like cascade as well, you can keep hitting the enemy and you'll eventually get the cooldown back. And that is the immunity damage. Oh, we've got auto on. Right, let me jump out of this. Turn that off. I don't know why. I think we were probably AFK farming. Oh yeah, we got assist mode on. Turn that off.
Practice makes perfect.
Draw them weapons. We got bogeys. You're wide open. Let's school ya. Reel them in.
So yeah, when you come in, you want to pop perpetual rotation, blast mirror image, and thrice blade. Hopefully you'll keep your triple marks and you'll be able to activate both skills instantaneously. When you activate these skills with triple marks, you'll give it to everyone in the team. So it's a big advantage, big boost for damage. And you can see the damage that Yoda does is just insane. You generate so much so quickly. He's not the strongest character in the game, but he is one of the funnest characters, I think. And this is the advantage of being able to do the finisher over and over again. And you can see just how much damage that does. And you'll eventually get to the point where you can do the constant move. The easy way to get up to triple again. And you can keep spamming the triangle again. And obviously you get that invincibility window at the beginning of it. You can use that to avoid a lot of damage. Yodarha is so good at keeping the damage going and keeping on the enemy that it stops you from dropping DPS. So very good on that. And as I said, if you want to avoid some damage, you can use this move. And you can control where you go. So it's really good for moving too. So if your enemy is doing a tornado attack, something like that that drags you in, you can use that move and then get out of it. Another thing with perpetual motion, if you activate perpetual motion with triple shrouds, it will reset the cooldown of everything. So you could essentially reactivate perpetual motion and then use Hymn of the Hundreds again, and you can give yourself another mirror image. Now this isn't capped at 3, this goes all the way up to 5 mirror images, so you're essentially free of damage for 5 hits. If you have like a shield or a healing shield from someone, that will generally protect you from a lot of hits as well. But it's just a great build for if you're struggling with a boss, or if there's an attack that you struggle with dodging. It really helps for that. It makes it so you can make a few mistakes. You're still going to need to dodge and stuff like that, but it will free that up a lot. Now for the summons I would just suggest Basically putting in any quality of life stuff that you want. You could put some more damage and stuff like that on there if you wanted to, something like tyranny. I personally don't like running tyranny because health loss is quite a struggle if you're fighting some of the end game stuff. But I mean, eventually you're going to want to try and not get hit by anything, but it just gives you a nice piggyback if you can run something like guts or auto revive. This applies to all your characters as well, so it's essentially a nice free sigil slot for everyone in the party. You can get these at 15 and stuff like that, so you just have to keep playing the game and eventually you'll roll what you want. I run the dragons quest, so I have nothing but dragons. But yeah, we've got stuff like auto revive and things like that. I've got cascade on here, just because when you hit the enemies, you're going to get your skills back, and obviously you're hitting so fast, you're going to get it back quite quickly. We've got divergence on here as well. This is a new health mod, which I'm not really sure exactly how it works, but you eventually will recover your health, and it also takes off a debuff sometimes. But what I found is it's a massive chunk of health that it gives back to you, so I really like it for that. And then obviously the equip bonuses, if you're quite lucky, you'll get stuff like stun power, health, damage, that kind of thing. Damage cap up on like Skybound Arts and stuff like that. It's really nice. So that's what I would suggest for that. On the master traits as well, if you go to the EX moves, so these are when you get to the final sort of tree. I like to sort of dense these out and try and go for certain ones. Stuff like this, so damage cap 20% per basic stats type sigil. That's why we have the stun power and the damage cap and the health, because this will not count unless the first skill is that stat. So you can't have a basic stat in the second slot and for this to count. So that's why we run that. We got the attack one as well. Same thing with that one. We've got the defense and the support ones. I'm not really sure if I'm taking advantage of this. So you could probably drop this and put something else on. Maybe stun power. Let me just see. We have, because that might be something that, yeah, so we're not really running that, so I would probably take that off. Hey, we're learning together. Yeah, and then I'd probably put more stun power on. And then what we at? Yep, so we're at 302, so that's basically what you want to be at for the stun power. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I would say you don't really need alpha and gamma anymore. You run it if you wanted to, but for this, I would say this basic build is going to run on pretty much everyone. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and take care.